Welcome to episode 171 of Timm Talk, the podcast about the DC animated universe co-created by Bruce Timm. I'm Chris Lord.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
And this week we have a special guest, a returning guest, Sam Gasch. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me back.
Sam. Yeah, you were last
The audience
on...
is going crazy. We got a studio audience just for you, Sam.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That is not good.
I mean, to be fair, it's not just for you. Cameron just always keeps a studio audience in his apartment so he can perpetually feel like he's living on a 90s sitcom.
Oh, that's handy.
Yeah, I mean, you need it sometimes.
Yes.
It really boosts the mood when you just do a quick trip. Mm-hmm. And everyone's like, oh, half the audience is really laughing and funny, and the other half is very concerned. It's like, is he okay?
They get to experience all your emotions, but bigger.
It helps me know how I should be feeling too.
Yeah. Because sometimes it's confusing. Am I getting the right read off of that? Oh, nope. Turns out I am. The audience agrees.
Yeah. Am I feeling some sexual tension here? There's a lot of wooing, so I'm going to say yes.
They are Cameron's emotional roadmap.
Yes.
But yeah, Sam, so you were last on for Almost Got Him, a fact that you had to remind me of last time I was on your show.
That is not the last time I was on.
That was not the last time you were on? Fucking hell.
That was the first time I was on.
What was that?
I was on for the Mr. Mixius Pitalik.
That's it.
That's right.
God damn it. I say this all the time. I forget these episodes as soon as I'm done with them. I legitimately do. And I even have a spreadsheet that I keep tabs on this. And I'm like, I don't need to go double check. I know he was on for Almost Got Him.
Yeah, that I was. That's true.
Well,
but then...
Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
I swear your appearances are far more special and memorable than it makes it sound. We always love having you on. And, of course, I've been lucky enough to be a guest on your show a few times. And I guess for those of you who don't know, why don't you talk about your podcast real quick? Because it's super, super fun.
So my show is called Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. So it's taking movies that either likely are going to be remade and how can we best do that, or movies that have been or honestly should be remade and being all right, what's the best way we can do this? What's the most modern way we can kind of capture the magic of the original or pick up the pieces of what the original should have been? Or in some cases, we'll do a deep dive into what would be the ideal next piece of a franchise. So, Chris, you were on to come up with the next Superman movie, but I think we ended up coming up with the Superman trilogy.
Yes, yeah, we came up with a whole reboot trilogy.
And then to celebrate your love of James Bond, we also kind of came up with an ideal James Bond movie based kind of off of From Russia with Love. And a bit of Casino Royale.
Yeah, I still want to see that movie.
And then most recently, you were on to remake The Avengers.
Yes, the weird 1960s TV show / or late 90s action movie, not the Marvel version everyone knows.
Yeah, The Avengers with Ray Fiennes and Uma Thurman. Everyone's favorite Avengers. But Cameron, the offer's always open. You're always welcome to come on and talk about a movie or something that you want to remake.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something. I was trying to think of something quippy right now, but my brain is already fried.
I think the original pitch I emailed you was, do you want to come on and remake Tomorrowland?
Oh, God, you did. I spent a good while thinking of a Tomorrowland remake, and I still can't figure it out.
Well, that's why you go on the show, is you guys figure it out together.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't expect people to come in with the entire thing fleshed out beforehand. If they do, great, much easier for me. But the number of times that happens is minimal.
Mm-hmm. And you've done a couple of Disney movies too.
Yeah, so actually the episode that just dropped this past week is we did a live action remake of Nightmare Before Christmas, and then I've also done a live action remake of Treasure Planet.
Oh, so just Treasure Island again?
Yeah, but in space.
Yeah. So Treasure Planet.
Yeah, exactly that.
But yeah, I definitely want to spend more time this episode talking about the actual point of the podcast, the cartoon episodes we're here to talk about.
How
and,
dare you?
That's not why I'm here.
We haven't done this in years.
Sam, you flagged this episode right at the beginning as one you wanted to be on. So obviously it means a lot to you, and I want to get into that. So I think we are going to forego a normal news section in favor of being able to spend more time talking about that. But two things I do want to mention kind of right up at the top here. The first of which is this episode will be coming out on the election on November 3rd. I suspect that even our international listeners are kind of a little more aware of this than normal, just because this time around the stakes are pretty damn high. And I was planning on originally waiting to the end, but talk about this. But I recognize that we probably have people listening who might be waiting in line to go vote, or who are driving to go drop off their ballot, or who are just looking for a little bit of a distraction while they're waiting for the results to come in. And so I figured it'd be better to talk about it at the top. Cameron just showed us his Hamilton I voted sticker, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I went to the Pantages to vote.
You went to the
did.
Pantages?
Yeah.
Very, very proud of you, Cameron, for
There
going
was
and doing
nobody
that.
there.
Oh, well, good. I mean, that's kind of what you would hope for, all things considered. But yeah, so I just kind of want to just acknowledge this up at the top. Obviously, like, this isn't the purview of the show. We're not a political podcast. But like I said, the stakes are pretty high this time, and so it's worth taking a moment just to acknowledge what's going on. And the reality is, like, this is no longer about politics, because politicians have decided that it's far easier to regulate people than it is to enact policy. So for a lot of us, like, this is ultimately more than an election. It's kind of a referendum on our own future. And a lot of people, myself included, are afraid of being either, like, further marginalized and treated with inequality at the hands of our own government. We're worried about further insults and degradation and things that we'll have to endure from a population and political base that refuses to recognize your humanity. And we worry that hatred and discrimination will continue to hold a greater legal authority than the right to live and to love who we want. We worry that more people will die or be imprisoned because of the color of skin. And on top of all that, we worry about how much more abuse our planet can take before it can no longer sustain us. So for a lot of us, these worries are very real, but they're also falling on deaf ears of friends or family who go through some combination of cognitive dissonance or willful ignorance or just plain stubbornness and just don't see these threats as real. And to not be seen and not be heard by people is one of the greatest pains we can possibly go through. So just know that if you're listening to this and you're one of those people that doesn't feel seen or heard and who feels alone, just know that we understand what you're going through. We understand your fear. We recognize the truth of them. We've probably never met or never even spoken, but we are feeling what you're feeling. We believe you. You are not alone. And in the knowledge that you're not alone, there is some hope out there. And if you're someone who just doesn't understand why this matters so much, if you're wondering why people are taking this so seriously, if you're wondering why we're talking about this on a podcast about old superhero cartoons, I just implore you to ask questions. Like, ask someone why they're scared right now. Ask with openness, with sincerity, with genuine curiosity. Ask with the intent to recognize the truth of another person's reality, because through asking those kind of questions and challenging your own perspective, that is where hope lies. That is where we can grow and learn and hopefully move forward. So if you are listening to this and you are at some point in the voting process, either, like I said, waiting in line or driving to drop off your ballot, just want to say thank you for doing what you can to try and make the world a better place. If you're listening to this after the election has happened, I hope that things are looking a little bit brighter, and this just sounds like the semi-coherent ramblings of a man under the strain of pre-election anxiety. But if you're listening to this and things seem a little bit darker, just remember that you're not alone. There is always hope to be found. And if there is one thing we can do on this podcast other than offer some light distraction, it's to try and offer a little bit of hope and positivity for the world. So wanted to get that out there before we got things started. I don't know if you guys have anything else you want to add to that, but
That was very well said. I would have my audience kind of queue up and give you an applause, but they have all actually just left to go vote.
Oh,
so
good.
Maybe they'll be back by the end of the podcast.
They're going to go off and be the canned audience for everyone at the polling booth, which is awesome. So, but yeah, thanks guys for letting me indulge in that a little bit. And I swear to God, we will eventually actually talk about what we're here to talk about, the positive things. There's one other thing which I wanted to acknowledge, which was, of course, over the weekend, the passing of Sir Sean Connery, which for anyone who's listened to this knows that I'm a huge James Bond fan. I mean, Sam, you brought it up right at the top of the show. I came on to talk about James Bond. And this one definitely stung a lot for me, just being a huge fan of that franchise. And it's meant a lot to me growing up and has, I like to think for better or not worse, shaped who I am. Who knows?
I mean, you were just a raging womanizer, and I can say that is probably from James Bond.
Yes, that is absolutely true.
You refuse to drink anything without first shaking it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true. You know, I'm sitting here at 10 a.m. on a Sunday drinking a martini, obviously, in a full suit.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Every car you see either has a turret gun or explodes.
I do have Stinger missiles behind my headlights, so
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense. But no, this definitely stung a lot. Like at a time where we're getting a lot of bad news for me personally, this was quite the loss. And I wrote a tribute to him up on my Instagram and Facebook, so you guys can find that there. But just wanted to acknowledge here that it is really sad, and he was kind of a problematic figure in a lot of ways. I think we can say that his attitude towards women is as problematic as the franchise itself can be at times. That's definitely worth acknowledging. But for me also, like, just the legacy he left behind of those films would never have happened without him. And, they've meant a lot to me. And no, it was really, really sad to hear that news. I don't know if you guys were as affected by that or not as I was, but
I was affected through you. Well, because it's one of those situations where, like, I know how much he means to you. And I know how much he means to our friend group. And so while I personally, he died in his sleep in the Bahamas, sounds like a pretty nice way to go. I understand that it's still not a great situation.
Not a bad way to go. And, he in a lot of ways is lucky that he gets to leave behind a legacy that I think few other people will ever have. Beyond James Bond, of course, he was great as Henry Jones Sr. in The Last Crusade, and he's amazing in The Hunt for Red October and
Highlander,
the Rock, Highlander
2,
The Avengers.
Yes, The Avengers, of course. I know. Yeah, I guess Sean Connery occupies a lot of space in our friendship, doesn't he?
It might. Yeah,
in a weirdly unexpected way. But yeah, I mean, like the legacy of films he got to leave behind, the legacy of characters, is absolutely incredible. And, it's great that, someone who's been gone from the public eye for so long and left on a low note with The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Sam, a movie I would love to come on and talk about at some point.
It has been earmarked for you. I had another guest say, hey, can we do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? I'm saying, I'm sorry, I've already reserved that. For Chris,
You're
going to have to talk about Catwoman.
Okay, perfect.
And she did.
No.
God.
Sean Connery's a real loss. I don't know where SNL Celebrity Jeopardy would be without him.
Oh my God, yes.
That is very true.
Totally neglecting that. Probably one of the greatest things to ever come out of Saturday Night Live was Daryl Hammond's Sean Connery impression. Yeah, that's definitely something I'll be watching this week to, alleviate the pain. But just wanted to acknowledge the sad passing. So rest in peace, Sir Sean. Okay, and as I promised, we'll actually talk about the episodes now. I'm done.
Speaking of legends, just waiting for it, Chris. It was set up so easily, Chris. This was your moment.
I was leaving it for you, Cameron. To swoop in with that beautiful, beautiful segue. But yeah, we are talking about the Justice League two-parter Legends this week. One episode that I'd say is considered by most people to be one of the best of the whole series.
Is it?
I don't know. I guess that sounded like a question in my head.
I would say
I enjoy it.
I loved this episode.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, so I think, normally we kind of I'll set up what's happening in the first part, and then we'll kind of talk through it, and then, talk about the cliffhanger, and then set up what's happening in the second part. I think for this episode, it's worth just kind of doing a summary of the whole thing, acknowledging the big twist in there so we can kind of really get into the meat of what makes this episode so interesting, and of course, Sam, why you wanted to come on and talk about it. So in this one, we see the Justice League go up against Lex Luthor in his amazing, big-ass mech suit. And when the Flash's powers interact with the robot's power core, he, Hawkgirl, Green Lantern, and Martian Manhunter are transported to a parallel dimension in an idyllic 1950s town called Seaboard City, which has its own superhero team, the Justice Guild, very much in the vein of the Justice Society of America from DC Comics. And Green Lantern quickly realizes that he recognizes the Justice Guild as heroes from comic books he read as a kid. And so the two hero teams join forces to take on the nefarious Injustice Guild. But the League starts to realize the town has a dark secret. And so as Green Lantern and Hawkgirl investigate, they come across a series of graves revealing the death somehow of the very Justice Guild members they've been working with. And as they discover more mysteries, like a milkman too terrified to answer questions, or a library full of empty books and signs of a massive disaster, including a headline declaring the Justice Guild dead, they eventually uncover the truth that the young sidekick of the Justice Guild, Ray Thompson, was horribly mutated by nuclear fallout and now is this really grotesque psionic monster who has recreated his town from his childhood and brought his heroes back to life. It's trippy as fuck, the whole thing.
I've been thinking about the character of Ray, and his power is nostalgia. It is telepathic nostalgia. Like what would our generation's Ray be? It would just be like a kid with all the snacks everywhere, right? It would just be like a tower of Dunkaroos.
Cameron, I don't want you to take this too personally, but I think the modern version of Ray would just be you.
If I had that power, it would be a very dark reality.
I think if you had that power, not only would the whole world be a 90s sitcom, but it would be a 90s sitcom where the main characters are constantly having to participate in 90s game shows as well.
Yeah, game shows, trivia, constantly.
That doesn't sound horrible, actually.
It's going to be very unhealthy with the slip and slide of Lunchables.
Oh my God! so many Lunchables, as you mentioned, Dunkaroos.
Dunkaroos. We'll have like
what happened to those? I'm always a little bit worried when like food products disappear. You kind of think like maybe this was just because they weren't popular enough to keep selling, but part of you wonders like, did they discover something horrible about this, and that's why it's no longer on shelves?
I remember I was on a road trip 10 years after I'd seen my last Dunkaroo, and we stopped at a random like 7-Eleven or something. I think we were in like New Brunswick or something. And I walked in and there was a box of Dunkaroos. And I was like, I wanted to buy it so bad, but in my head I was like, this thing is definitely 10 years old, and if you eat it, you will die. It is a cursed item. You should not own this.
Yeah, did you look at the expiration date just to check?
I didn't. I should have, but I didn't.
I mean, I don't know how many chemicals have expiration dates.
I mean, that's the thing about sugar. That like sugar doesn't spoil. As long as you don't get it wet, it will last forever. Yeah. And if you have a product that is pure sugar
nothing. It is just sugar dipped in sugar.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's honestly a wonder we survived like the food and toys of our childhood. But no, Cameron, like you're absolutely right. Like at the end of the day, like Ray's power is just nostalgia, and also I think it's very fitting. I don't know if you guys caught this. Did you see who voices Ray in this episode?
No.
Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris himself.
Wow.
Which, if you think about this, so this was made in 2002. So I mean, this was before like his resurgence on How I Met Your Mother. I guess this may have been around the same time as Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, but like this was definitely a Neil Patrick Harris who like hadn't found a new foothold in the zeitgeist, and so it was definitely like a deliberate casting to play up that nostalgia element. But so like I think there are so many like fun things about this episode. One of which is, of course, like we get this completely original in quotes, superhero team of the Justice Guild, who I guess the writers wanted it to be the JSA, but they were told no. And so they just came up with like proxies of all of them. But, this is basically the closest we get to having the JSA in this universe. And I thought they did like a really good job of making those characters feel like appropriately old fashioned. I loved it.
Yeah, I love this. Like, especially because my first introduction to superheroes in general was Super Friends. Mm-hmm. Like, when I was a super little kid, I grew up watching Super Friends, like, before Batman the Animated Series or any of that came along. And I just remember, like, this just it kind of hits all those buttons, and it's wonderful.
I mean, is that like, one of the reasons why this was an episode you were super excited to come on for, was because it hits that button of remembering the Super Friends? Like, what about this episode was, so stand out for you, Sam?
I mean, I, like all fans of things, enjoy crossovers of one thing or another. Like, even when I came on for Almost Got Him, it's just like, oh, it's all the villains hanging out, or oh, look at all these heroes hanging out. Like the Batman Beyond episode that I'd really enjoyed had been this had been the crossover with like, oh, the Super Justice, like the future Justice League, which I'd really liked. And like those are the things that I always like. I'm always like, ooh, like expanded universe. That's why Justice League Unlimited is like, for me, like even beyond the fact that it's the pinnacle of the pinnacle of like this whole like series of Bruce Timm shows. Like I love it because I'm like, I just get to see like all these. Because I'm not a comic book reader, there's such deep lore there that I can't. Oh. But, like, I love hearing about all these different crazy people who are like, no, you don't understand. They're called Hawk and Dove. I'm like, oh, okay. And so I've always loved that. And just getting these little tastes of everything is so much fun. And just, like, and even more so with this one, just, like, the clash of styles.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful for me, because it's also like a little bit of meta-referential where the Flash goes over. It's like, I almost lost it when they did that introduction thing. Oh my god.
Oh, because they are so cheesy. Like I didn't really watch the Super Friends growing up, but I watched the 1960s Batman movie like on repeat, and a handful of the episodes here and there. And I think this episode's definitely playing up that sort of like cheesy, hammed up, like everything is like upbeat and bright and positive take on things, and it's just fun, and it's fun to see it kind of dropped into this universe, which I think otherwise does a really good job towing that line between like light and fun and bright, but also like dark and real. And so, to put them up against these characters that are just so just over the top, like they have plastic, Justice Guild rings, they have a roll call. They make Black Siren do all of the domestic work. Like it's so of a very specific time, and to see everyone else like comment on it. Like I love how much Hawkgirl hates being there. She's like, I am not gonna go get dessert. Do not make me do this.
Well, because isn't that the original League? If I remember correctly, Wonder Woman wasn't a member. She was like the assistant to the group.
Oh my god!
What?
That is probably true.
I might be misremembering this for a different. It might not be the Justice League, but there was definitely, it's either the League or Society where like the female members weren't technically members yet. They were like associates/assistants, and they were just there to kind of do the other work.
Oh my god! I can absolutely believe that was a true thing. It's they do a good job like referencing that was a thing, and then having Hawkgirl special be like, I will not be patronized, like this is bullshit. Like she's probably the toughest one amongst that entire group of people, like, and she's definitely the person you'll be like, hey, like, you want to go bake some cupcakes? She'd be like, fuck no, I want to go hit someone with a mace. Why would you make me do this?
And like there's that moment where Green Lantern like just has stars. It's like, I'm getting to meet my heroes. I'm getting to meet my heroes. You're a credit to your people. All right, this is fun. This was fun, and it's over now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, great, thanks. I know that was meant to be a compliment, but what the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say I think it was Key and Peele that did the bit. If not them, it was two other YouTubers that have the great bit of the two black scientists that discover how to time travel. And like, oh man, we can go to like the 60s, and like, maybe not the 60s. Like, oh, let's go to like the 20s and 30s, and we'll like relive the jazz era. It's like, I don't think that's going to be very good for us either. It's like, okay, what about like the Revolutionary time? We can fight alongside George Washington. It's like, no, I don't. I think we should just kind of leave this where it is and go do something else.
God, that is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, we definitely see that play out here because like this town they're in is just like Wonder Bread Central, like even to the point of having like the guy driving around the ice cream truck all day long, and the super genial police officers, like their over the top Irish accents who are completely useless and just phone up the Justice Guild to get to do work for them. It's all this like very like idyllic space. So of course it makes sense. Like the reveal is that it's all just some kid's illusion, because like none of this would even be realistic ever.
That said, one of my favorite moments in this episode, having rewatched it, because I actually rewatched this episode 6 months ago, as research for a movie I wrote. But there's a moment that I caught at the very, very end where, so the police officer who talks is like I'm super Irish. And and then, like, there's that moment at the end where he just leans in and goes, "Hey, thanks for helping us out." Yeah. No accent at all. And I lost it. So it's just like, even if this world may or may not have been like that, the kid was like that. The kid was a racist little piece of shit.
The kid was the racist one.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, look at that kid. Are we that surprised? You know, anyone who wears like that, you know, a sweater vest like that, you got to be a little bit suspicious of.
Here's my question. Was he actually the league's assistant, or was he just some kid who looked up to them and made himself, like, kind of slotted himself into this life when he recreated it? Because I don't think he, like John, Martian Manhunter goes, "Yeah, we really shouldn't put a kid in harm's way." Come on, kid.
Come on, Ray. Hop in the shotgun. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I don't think they ever acknowledge whether he was their sidekick as a kid, do they?
I would imagine that was part of his fantasy, because that is the easiest way for him to be in the action at all times.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so like you think that he was just some kid that got, you know, hit by the nuclear fallout and mutated. Like, he, in the original continuity, he wasn't part of the Justice Guild. Is that like your guys'?
Yeah, I mean, he might have been in the city. He has a similar look to like a young Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's like maybe he was kind of in that kind of role. Maybe he was like a photographer and just really loved the group. But I think the rings specifically show that he wasn't an official member, because the rings are the plastic toy rings still.
Oh, that's a really clever point. Yeah, that if, you know, he would have imagined it as the actual proper rings, not like the ones you could get if you were a fan.
Yeah, he's basically Syndrome if Syndrome hadn't been completely disillusioned by actually meeting his heroes.
Oh my God. Man, you guys are right. This actually just got so much darker now when you look at it from that context. Like, I'd always just assumed he was always their sidekick. He was like the one person that survived the team. And so he brought them back. But you're right. Like, he probably had nothing to do with them, which makes this whole thing that much sadder. Oh, God.
Just a racist syndrome. Can't get much worse than that.
But, you know, like, I think one of the fun things that happens here is not only do we get the Justice Society proxies, but we also get, like, the Injustice Society proxies. We get, you know, the Injustice Guild, who goes up to fight him. And so, and, you know, they're all characters based off of, you know, other comic heroes. So you have, like, Sir Swami, who's supposed to be, I guess, like, the Wizard. Dr. Blizzard's the Icicle. You have the Sportsman, who is, you know, basically the sports master, but also played by Bob Hope, which I thought was a very, very specific character choice. That
he's also drawn to look like Bob Hope.
Well, that's exactly it. Yeah, I mean, he's not voiced by Bob Hope. I think he's actually voiced by, I want to say Michael McKean, maybe. I'll have to look at that.
When did this air? Late 90s?
2002.
2002.
Yeah, Bob Hope passed away in 1999, didn't he?
Maybe? I'm gonna be honest. I don't know that much about Bob Hope. Just enough to know that I recognized him when there was like a characterization of him, and even then, I only know what he looks like because he recently was a guest star on a very old episode of The Golden Girls that I watched.
So. Oh no, I'm wrong. He died in 2003.
Okay, so it was like right after this. But I just thought that was an interesting choice. Like, hey, let's make like the sports master Bob Hope, and then my favorite of them, of course, was the Music Master, who I guess is based off of the Fiddler, who's a DC Comics villain who uses a violin. I thought, oh, well, isn't
not
he
the Music Meister?
Well,
Music Meister's an actual villain.
I thought that. And I'm like, well, it's clearly the Music Meister, right? I didn't realize the Music Meister was created for Batman Brave and the Bold. He's actually a fairly new comic creation.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and then
who is also voiced by Neil Patrick Harris.
Who's also voiced by Neil Patrick Harris, yeah. And so they created him for the show, and then, you know, like, that's, I think it's fair to say, one of the best episodes of Brave and the Bold, and he was like a pretty popular character. So then he started getting introduced in the comics and on the CW Arrowverse and stuff like that. But yeah, I was shocked to realize that he is not an original villain. He you know, he was created for the show years after this.
That's fascinating.
Wild.
I know.
Yeah.
What a great character.
I love his intro, and when we first meet Music Master, is he's stealing a Stradivarius, which is a very, very fancy violin, from what looks like a Guitar Center.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so just like so comic, like 60s comic. I love it so much.
Yes.
They kept doing that too. Like when Sportsman is stealing the trophy for the tennis clay courts championship, the perfect earth crime to make me filthy rich. And it's like, what? Who would you sell that to? That's like a $5 trophy.
They do such a good job in this episode with like super corny 50s, 60s dialogue. Like one of my favorite lines is when they're talking about the Injustice Guild, and I think it's Tom Turbine goes, "I doubt there's enough good between the four of them to help a wounded puppy."
Yep.
And I'm like, that is such a beautiful line.
Well, plus, we can't ignore the fact this episode is packed with puns.
Yeah. Oh man, Flash was in his element.
Yeah. Flash was loving this. He finally got to be around other superheroes who are even cornier than he is. Yeah, he has like a full-on pun off with was it Dr. Blizzard that just gets worse and worse as you go along. And I was, as a big fan of puns, I was absolutely living for it. Oh, and they were obviously like very like forced at times, which made it even better. My favorite is Dr. Blizzard referring to taking off with his chill-gotten gains.
Yes, that was the worst one.
That was a really good one.
Chef's kiss. Perfection. The worse the pun, the better it is.
The dolphin fountain, which also super resellable.
I know.
Yeah.
But like the ridiculousness of all of it, definitely feeds into the idea that it's all in a kid's head, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, even the normal universe of the DCAU can be a little bit silly and ridiculous at times. There's a lot of stuff in Superman, a lot of stuff in Batman animated series, all of Zeta that we can point to point that out. But the fact that here it's like it is like silly to the point of being like completely absurd and improbable. Like, yeah, who's gonna steal a fountain? Who's gonna steal this, clay trophy sort
Who
of thing?
could possibly steal the Grand Canyon?
Yes, exactly. And who's going to try and get away in a blimp? The most conspicuous vehicle possible.
And also not known for their speed.
No.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, they're so slow.
Yes.
But they had a twist. They attached Black Siren and Flash to the outside, so they can't just pop the blimp. Which is how they end up getting out, as Flash just pops the blimp.
Which, if they were going to pop the blimp, were they just going to kill the villains?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Oh, cool. All right. No further questions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very passive attempted murder by heroes in the DCAU is what we've discovered. Terry McGinnis being maybe the most egregious offender of them all, who is constantly doing things that should kill his villains.
Oh, here's a thought I didn't think about for Terry in a semi hopeful future. Maybe in this version of Gotham, there's free healthcare, so we can go a little bit crazier than Batman can normally go.
Cameron, normally I would say that's ridiculous to think that the bleak future of Gotham City could have something as progressive as universal healthcare, but then I remember the world we live in. So yeah, very, very possible in that universe. Sadly. But yeah, I love that because they do at one point capture the Flash and Siren, and they tie them to outside the balloon. That the Flash, who I'm pretty sure in this universe can vibrate himself so he can phase through things rather than phasing through the cords, literally just pokes the balloon with the pointy ears on his costume.
After a bunch of other stuff happened. After struggling for a while.
They've been on that thing for at least, a good 15, 20 minutes of action that we've seen on screen, plus the, maybe half hour of the heist, plus however long it took them to get there from wherever the villain's hideout is. Like, they've been on that thing for 2 or 3 hours, probably.
I like to think he just forgot he had those.
Yeah.
I think, so here's my idea about being on the blimp. The Flash has to impress Black Siren while he's there. That is his first and foremost goal is impress the girl. Second is catch the villains. while they're in the air, there's nothing he can really do that's cool to impress her except like fall if he vibrates out of them.
Yeah.
So he can't just use his good old trick. He has to be creative and think of some other way to still be with her, still look cool, and still save the day. And so what does he do? He pops the balloon and kills his villains.
He waits for his opening to just be super nonchalant and chill. Just like pop.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He also has to wait for all the other heroes to fail.
That's
so
true.
that he gets to be the one. He gets to be the end all be all. Like, this is my decision now.
I like it.
It was fun to see him to get to be in his element a little bit. Cameron, were you finally excited to see a Green Lantern type character who made constructs?
Holy shit, Chris. It was so wonderful. We got a catcher's mitt. We got another catcher's mitt. They reused a lot of animation on that one. We got a third catcher's mitt.
We got a bird cage.
We got an anvil. We got an arrow.
Yes, the classic cartoon trope of the anvil.
That said, because I also listen to your show, and Cameron, I've been hearing all of your like upsettedness. That's the word.
Yeah.
With the lack of what's the word?
Constructs.
Constructs. Thank you. And you keep talking about how Green Lantern is an architect, but also he's an architect, so he's going to be all about efficiency of design. And I don't know if a bird cage, an anvil, and an arrow are the most efficient designs when literally a bubble, a wall, and a beam are the most efficient designs.
Yes, no, I get that. Someone else has brought that up to me, and I frustratingly have to agree with that. I get it. I get it. But, I mean, like, the whole point of him being an architect, in the comics at least, is he has the strongest constructs of any Green Lantern because he thinks about them inside out. So they're not just, like, hollow designs. They have substance, and they will, like, actually stick when you make them, compared to Kyle,
I do know that there is a future episode in this series where he makes constructs, but I know you don't do, like, future tells. But I know that he's going to do it.
Okay. I'll be ready for that moment.
Yeah,
And
you've given us something to look forward to.
yeah, it's going to be great. It is genuinely everything you wanted.
Also,
Good.
Sam, for many reasons, I'm glad you're here, but particularly that you would point this out to Cameron, the fact that, the making constructs would not be efficient for Jon Stewart. Because I feel like if I were to do that, Cameron would immediately dismiss me, but he at least listened to you and agreed with you for a little bit.
I think it also helps that I was the second person to say it.
That, I guess
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
Someone else has brought this up to me before, and I'm just like, I know, but that's not the point of being a Green Lantern.
I mean, a Green Lantern is also, like, of this group, the one that I would want to be, because you get to have fun making stuff. Like, it's the ultimate creative expression.
Yeah.
It is. I will, as someone who's in the midst of creative burnout right now, I will also argue the counterpoint of that. Like, you always have to be thinking of something, and like I might be in a fight, and it's like, fuck, like what do I use to catch people? Like, holy shit, like I can't think of the word. What's the word I need to use to catch them? And then they just like fall. It's like, fuck, I just made a fucking bubble. Why not just make a bubble?
You're trying to remember what the name for a catcher's mitt is, but you can't. So then you have to construct a Green Lantern phone to look up what the name of that thing is that you use to catch balls. And then you're like, oh, it's called the catcher's mitt. Catcher's mitt. At that point, the person is a splatter on the ground.
Yeah.
I just love the idea of like a giant, not yellow pages, but green pages, and you're flipping through to catch. Oh, catcher's mitt, great.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
You have to construct a dictionary, an encyclopedia, a thesaurus.
Well, we do see Kyle do that in a couple comics where like the other Green Lanterns are fighting and he's holding back and he's constructed a giant pencil to sketch out his idea before he constructs it. And I'm like, that is exactly what I would do all the time.
Yes.
Someone else handles the bulk of the work and I'll come in with this unnecessarily abstract idea. It's like, see, this is what I'm thinking. I constructed Ursula because they're just going to take the villain's legs away, and that's how we're going to stop them. It's like they're already in handcuffs, Cameron.
Your brain goes from A to like Q just to figure out what construct you're going to do while everyone else just goes straight for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cameron, please don't become a superhero.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
We'd be so screwed. Also, don't become a mutated psionic psychopath and make the world into a 90s sitcom.
Although, that said, they don't ask anybody. They don't find out. They literally just take him out and then destroy the world. And then they're like, oh, we didn't realize there were actually real people here. And then they just have to kind of like humbly go, sorry, we broke your world.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's good. We're glad you
bad.
did that.
Yeah.
No, it turns out what you did was good. Oh, okay, good. Whew.
That was kind of an odd moment. Like, after the Justice Guild realizes what Ray is and decides that they'll team up with Justice League to defeat him, even if it means erasing themselves from existence. Like, you kind of feel like that's just where it's going to end. And then, they have all the townspeople come out and be like, oh, yeah, like, I've been pretending to drive that milk truck for the last 40 years. And do you feel like they kind of added that to give the episode, like, some sense of hope? Like, oh, this world can rebuild itself? But it doesn't really make any sense, right? Like,
It made it way darker for me.
right, yeah. Like,
Well, because that's how we showed the kid was racist. That was a necessary scene, that he only knows stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's true. Because it's weird. It's like, like all those other people survived Fallout 2 and didn't get mutated, but haven't.
And also didn't age.
Yeah, haven't aged or changed at all in the last 40 years.
Yeah, it was a perfect
So I think that would've
idealized
been-
world.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the sadder flip of this, is the people come back and they're like, oh, we've been brainwashed. But then you like see them in their old form of like, oh, right, now we're 40 years older than we were. And I guess now we can kind of start to rebuild.
Ish.
I can lift a brick. That is the strength of my 79-year-old body.
I mean, we could also let's say he was granting them immortality, like he was keeping this world in like some sort of nostalgia bubble.
Yeah.
But
Frozen in time, yeah.
but there were also and there were some like definitely construct people. Like I don't think the bus full of nuns were real. Like I don't think those were real people. But he was definitely like making giant robots and blowing things up, and the villains were definitely doing bad things. How many people were there in the town, do you think, at the beginning of the 40 years that got kind of killed by the constant stream of villainy that was happening?
It's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like-
in that point, I was thinking about at the beginning when we're first introduced to everybody, the building's about to fall on Ray. What if Flash didn't save him? What if he just can he be
yeah.
crushed by his own constructs?
Would he have gotten knocked out and then the whole world would have disappeared around him?
Yeah,
I think this has happened
which
before.
is then a whole other mystery that they have to figure out.
Yeah, I also like the idea of that happens, Ray resets the world, he goes and puts the heroes back in their box, and he just goes, assembles the townspeople and shouts them, we're gonna do this again, and we're gonna get it right this time! Line back up! Okay, we're sorry, sir.
Take two, motherfuckers. We're going
All
again.
right, if 40 years you can't get it right, we'll just have to do 40 more!
I could
Yeah.
totally believe that this has happened. That Ray has gotten knocked unconscious by insisting he be in the middle of the action, and when that happens, the entire world disappears except for the same townspeople. Wait, are we free? Are we finally free? And then as soon as Ray wakes back up, he puts it all back together, and they're right back where they were. Oh, god damn it!
Which is they didn't kill Ray. Is Ray going to wake back up and reset the world again?
Yeah, that's the thing, is he's just knocked unconscious. He's still there, just chilling. I guess they had to find some way to make it seem semi-hopeful, but I feel like there's really no version of this where the Justice League leaves and this place isn't just continue to be a terrible, terrible place to live.
Yeah, where are they going to find food in the dust?
Yeah. Have they eaten at all this entire time? Has it just been, Siren making cupcakes for the entire town for the last 40 years? Honestly, probably,
Yes.
yeah. It's probably true.
She's
Well,
very
so-
good, but she cannot make a souffle.
No, it's her kryptonite. It's her culinary kryptonite. I get it. Souffles are hard.
Well,
Yeah.
also she, it's a siren call thing.
Nice.
Beautiful. Yeah, because we also have to think about, is Rey the only one with powers from the nuclear fallout? Like, do any of these other people have, like, are they all just immortal beings from surviving the fallout?
That would really suck if everyone else was granted exclusively immortality and Rey was the only one who then also was like horribly mutated into this like grotesque, almost MODOK-like looking little thing with powers. Mm-hmm. Like, no wonder he decided to create a fake world. Like, that would be real shit.
It's one of those weird comic book things that always comes out. Like, oh, you saved my life. To thank you, I give you the gift of immortality. Or you've doomed this empire to fall. Therefore, I curse you with immortality. What?
Yeah.
So it's like
it sucks. No one wants to be immortal.
No.
No.
Well, hang on. What are the rules of immortality? Like, do I just like immediately become immortal in this moment and I stay exactly as I am for the rest of my life? Because if so, I want to defer for like 3 months to hit the gym hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That will weirdly also come up on a future Justice League episode. Weirdly, the same Justice League episode that I've already referenced.
I can't wait when we finally realize that's the episode you were talking about. In however many weeks or months. Like, oh my God, this was the one.
It's going to be great. I don't think it's this season.
Okay.
It might be. No, it's definitely not.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
It's all fine.
Everything's fine. There's a moment I want to bring up very briefly that's before they even go to the parallel world where they're still fighting Lex's robot.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Lex's version of Ultron?
Yes.
Yeah.
His version of an Evangelion machine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Where it's Superman and Batman are the last two left, sans Wonder Woman, who's nowhere to be seen. Mm-hmm. And Superman rips open the back. And it's like, Batman, you only have one shot at this. And he throws a batarang and it blows up the inner core. Superman didn't need to do that. Batman didn't need to be there. That was him showing how great of a team player he is. Superman could have easily lasered it, punched it. I'm sure his punches are much more impactful than a batarang. This is the problem when your friends pay for everything, is you feel like you have to include them in stuff. And it's the league like meeting before we go fight this robot. It's like, hey, Superman, like Batman has to actually do the final punch, or like he might defund the watchtower for a couple months. Like, can you just like give him this one?
See,
it's like, I know we have to.
That is one way of looking at it. I choose to look at it is that is actually the work of Batman gaslighting the rest of the Justice League for years into thinking they need him.
That is also a great idea.
Like he has, through very subtle, long-form manipulation, convinced them that he has to be the one to like get the final shot in there, that they need him for everything. Obviously, part of that is him manipulating them because, Cameron, to your point, he pays for everything, so they know they need him. But it's all his work doing that. Like, he intends them to come to these conclusions. They are not doing it out of the kindness of their heart.
I also like Cameron's idea of like, guys, we got to get Batman to help us on this one. Remember that time we didn't wait for him to go get his bat jet, and then he forgot to empty the watchtower septic tank for a month? Just let him do this, okay? It's fine.
We gotta, yeah. It's like, hey, I'm imagining him gaslighting, like, hey, Superman, how many times does the villain get up after you punch them? Like, it's not as strong as you think. But like, when I throw my batarang, they all like, I can't tell you the number of times we've won the day because I threw a batarang. It's like, if you look at these two together, it seems that I'm pretty necessary.
I hit 100% of my targets with the batarang. But so, you know, like, you're right, Cameron. Like, we have this whole like intro thing with Lex and his robot, and then they get kind of teleported in. Like, how do you guys feel about the like in-universe justification for the way this all works, right? So like, you know, there's the pseudoscience of just like the Flash's powers interacting with the core that teleports them.
Oh, I'm a sucker for a multiverse explanation. Like, anytime they pull out, because they always pull out a whiteboard.
Yes.
And anytime, like, fucking give it to me, man. Give me that diagram that you draw every time since 1986. Like,
I like this diagram where like they have the 3 sections and it's a squiggly line, but it's a different kind of squiggly line in each section.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved that.
I'm such a sucker for multiverse explanations. Just put it in every episode and I will be very happy.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, every world, like, you know, fluctuates at its own frequency, and you guys, like, you know, vibrated R's, you got teleported here, and the reason you remember these, us as comic book characters is because that writer had some weird subconscious telepathic link to this universe, and it's all so silly and so comic booky, and it's all just like thrown away in one line, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want out of my cartoons.
Yeah. That said, if I were like redoing this again and I wasn't necessarily trying to do the Justice Society of America, I probably would lean into like the Super Friends nature of it. And instead of it being 5 separate characters that are kind of like knockoff versions, I would literally have it be, hi, I'm the Green Lantern. And I am the Green Lantern. It's the same. It's the 50s Super Friends versions of themselves.
It's almost like that moment in the post-credits of Into the Spider-Verse, right? When Spider-Man 2099 like faces like the 1960s version, like it's just all of the our version of the Justice League like talking to the Super Friends version that speaks in like their own like weird cadence and dialogue and like stilted manners.
Yeah, exactly that.
Well, did either of you watch Teen Titans vs. Teen Titans Go?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I mean that is the reverse version of this, where it's the very stoic, serious 2003/5 Teen Titans meeting the Teen Titans Go team.
Yeah.
Where it's just like
and
Robin making sound effects for his bike, and Cyborg, only using his arm as an amp and not a weapon.
Did you even save the city? We saved room for dessert. Blah, 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 blah. my favorite part of all of that is that like every version of Robin they come across is sexier than the last, and they just keep talking about that. And the Teen Titans Go Robin just feels like so slighted because he's not as sexy with his little hands.
I forgot about that. That was amazing.
Oh, and another line that I loved is when they get a phone call about, I think this is about the blimp. It's like, oh yeah, the bank has just been robbed and they're getting away on a blimp. And Timm Turbine, what the fuck is his name again?
Tom Turbine.
Tom Turbine says, only they would commit such a heinous act, and on a Sunday.
Yeah.
It's like, that is, beautiful.
Oh, no. The Streak says that.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Which, like, for all the talking that Tom Turbine did, apparently the Streak was the leader?
I guess Tom Turbine was closer to like closer to a Manhunter or to Martian Manhunter than I mean I know he's supposed to be Superman, but he's like the smart one as well. He's the scientific one.
Yeah, he was the not I'm a doctor, not a blank, Jim. That guy.
Oh, he's the McCoy, the Bones.
Yeah, he's the McCoy.
Yeah, like he's supposed to be a proxy of the Golden Age version of the Atom, as also the Golden Age version of Superman. Like there's a little bit of crossover between those two. Like he has he's the least direct pullover, right? Because obviously you get Green Guardsman is the Alan Scott Green Lantern. The Streak is Golden Age Flash Jay Garrick. Black Siren is Black Canary. Catman is a combination of Wildcat and Golden Age Batman. But yeah, Tom Turbine's like the one kind of slightly original character they threw in there because he's also like the scientist, the inventor. He's the one who's built this potential gateway door thingy that they can go back through to get to their own universe. But yeah, I guess you're right. I guess he's not the leader. I guess that's just the Streak.
Yeah, and for being the kind of most original character for the group, I find it interesting that that's the first one we meet. Where like it feels like, I mean, it's smart writing because it feels like we're in a new world, and there's another hero/villain who has a new power we haven't seen before. And it's like, oh, we have to stop these, and then you start to trickle in. It's like, oh wait, we know who that is. Like that's Flash, right? No, yeah, that's Green Lantern. It's like, oh, okay, it's the Justice League.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
That is a good point.
But yeah, by introducing him first, it allows us to maintain the illusion before we start going like, wait, isn't that just the Flash? Like,
yeah.
Isn't
He's
that
the good guy with a nuclear reactor on his tummy? Super safe.
The best possible superpower.
Yeah.
But I love that they're your point about them getting like the call on the Sunday of like anytime someone is close to figuring out the reality of what's going on, they're just called off to some new disaster, right? And like a lot of the crimes are like kind of benign in some ways. It's like, yeah, obviously, like, don't steal, like, you know, the Wright brothers Kitty Hawk, but also, like, it's not a violent crime where people are really in danger. But I also love
that was a super mobile biplane, or whatever biplane that was.
That thing was way more like easily pilotable than the actual Kitty Hawk was way back in the day. But, you know, I love the random things that happen around the city to, like, stop anyone from discovering the truth. My favorite of which is when the bus full of nuns was careening towards the truck full of TNT that had its brakes cut. It's just like, you know, even the Flash comments like, seriously? This? Like, really? This is happening? But it's so on the nose. And to me, it reminds me of one of my favorite moments in all of cinema, which is the 1960s Batman movie, when Batman has, like, the oversized bomb and he's trying to get rid of, and he's running all around the pier trying to find a place to throw it. And, like, he can't because there's, you know, a couple in a boat making out, or there's a line of duckies. Or my favorite thing is he goes up a ramp and there's a couple of nuns walking towards him. So he spins around and goes back the other way. It's like, that is the sort of shit that happened in, like, the 60s era comics and TV shows and stuff like that.
I mean, isn't this just a metaphor for our media cycle, though? Anytime we start to get close to something bad, they're like, what's Kim Kardashian doing? She's throwing a party with her friends.
Look, it's a hologram of her dad.
Uh-oh.
These wacky celebs.
Look, a distraction. Yeah, but no, it's, you know, it's a lot of fun, this episode. I thought it had a great cliffhanger moment in the first part when Hawkgirl, like, lands in the cemetery and sees the graves, and you're like, holy fuck, like, where is this going? You know, it's like, sometimes I forget what it was like to see these when they originally aired. And I think most of them I end up TiVoing, so I got to watch them, like, back to back. I didn't watch them, you know, with gaps in between. But it's like, that's a pretty great cliffhanger to leave on, knowing you're not going to get an answer for another week.
Yeah, no, I watched it and then had to wait a week because, like, it was always the Saturday night tune block or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh no, and then just, like, waiting a week and like what's gonna happen? But
I forgot, like, this was Cartoon Network Saturday nights. I forgot that this was a night show, not part of the Kids WB lineup. Like,
the Bruce Timm stuff bounced around because Batman the Animated Series I watched on Cartoon Network, but I feel like I remember watching Batman Beyond on Kids WB.
Yes, Beyond and Static, and I think Zeta were all Kids WB.
Yeah.
Well, Justice League JLU, Batman and Superman were all Cartoon Network Saturday nights.
BTOS was Fox way back in the day.
Oh, yes.
And then Superman was Kids WB, and then they brought back the new Batman Adventures. And then, Static, and I'm pretty sure Zeta and Batman Beyond were all Kids WB. And then by the time they got to Justice League, they had switched over to Cartoon Network and did that for Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. But then I think at that point, Cartoon Network was doing reruns on a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was that lineup? Because that was pre-Toonami.
I mean, I'm sure there were, like, just some anime things in there too. Like,
I'm sure there was some Dragon Ball Z,
Dragon Ball Z's and whatnot. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either because it's been almost 20 years.
Good point. Speaking of things that have been almost 20 years, like when the villains are standing in the cave and they're like, well, we've figured out what our crime is going to be. I kept expecting this moment, but I realized it's from The Simpsons in the McBain movie where, like, all the villains are there and they hold up their champagne glasses and go, gentlemen, to evil. And I just kept expecting that, and it never happened.
Honestly.
And I realized.
But you're right. Tonally, it would have perfectly fit in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're all just, like, you know, pastiches of those kind of characters. Of course, it totally would have fit there. No, and, like, I think, like, the one thing we haven't touched on, which I think is probably actually also my favorite thing about this this episode, and I think kind of the emotional hook of all of it, is, like, this is, at the end of the day, it's a Green Lantern episode. Because, one, we get to figure out that he was a total comic book nerd, which is just awesome. Like, you know, Green Lantern, Jon Stewart, this, like, super cool, tough, serious, badass guy, former Marine, you know, also grew up a huge comic book nerd. And the fact that, like, that is part of his character makes him just feel that much more interesting. But also, like, he's really emotionally affected by, you know, the realization that, you know, not only were these people real once, but, you know, the sacrifice they made and then the sacrifice they make again to save the world. Like, we often think of him as being this very stoic character, but in his own way, he really like does carry his heart and his feelings on his sleeve. Like he's very reactive to things that in a way that you wouldn't kind of expect from someone who's otherwise very serious.
I think like especially for both Justice League shows, like he's kind of one of the characters that goes through the most emotional stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know if that's why I connected to him most when I was a kid, or if it was just because I really liked the color green. But like, he was always my favorite.
Yeah. No.
Like even after having watched Batman and Superman and everything.
And I think you're onto something there because I think you kind of go into a show like this, even if you're weren't watching BTOS Superman before this, like everyone knows who Batman and Superman are. We've all had experience with them. We've seen the movies or we've seen them in Super Friends, something like that. And this show does such a good job about bringing these other characters you don't know. And yeah, I think John gets kind of like the most emotional weight. And we'll get into a big part of that. Of course, is going to be the Justice League finale and Starcrossed, one of the best episodes in the entire thing. Mm-hmm. That plays a lot into it. But yeah, he does go through like this pretty intense emotional roller coaster. And in a lot of ways, he feels the most real of all of them.
I think that kind of comes with him being the midpoint between Superman and Batman, mm-hmm. where both of them, they've had a decade of history before this on TV. They can't really break out of that box anymore. They're very typecast characters. Superman's always going to be the Boy Scout. Batman's always going to be doing his thing. Mm-hmm. But now John can be the serious one. He can also be a detective. It can also kind of have this Superman backstory of like, oh, I'm just a guy. Mm-hmm. I'm just a guy who liked comics. I did my thing, and now I'm where I am. He gets to fill that range that the other two are kind of stuck at the ends of.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. Like he's kind of the center point of all of them, right? Like he has a little bit of all of the other, characters. I think they're all pushed a little bit more towards your point, like a certain kind of iconography or a certain type of like personality or stereotype, and he's just a little bit of all of them, except
for Flash.
He cracks a joke every once in a while. I will say that, like he's he'll throw in a joke or a pun on occasion, but most of the time you're right. Yeah, he's just annoyed at the Flash. So.
But you gotta have that.
Is there anything else on this episode you guys want to talk about? Because I definitely do want to mention the voice cast at some point.
Tell us about the voice cast. Besides Neil Patrick Harris, who else is going to surprise us here?
Besides Neil Patrick Harris, of course.
Is Tom Turbine Nathan Fillion or something?
No, so Tom Turbine is Ted McGinley, who most people will know as Dr. Cox on Scrubs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
Amazing. Wait, who would then later come back to voice the Atom?
Is that?
Yeah, that's Dr. Cox.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he also voices the Atom later on. Yeah. No,
That's fantastic.
He's fantastic. Great actor, great voice actor. So it's fun to see. Wait, I do have that right? Ted McGinley.
John C. McGinley is Dr. Cox. I don't know who Tom...
Oh, shit. Okay, no. Sorry. I have that wrong. I'm thinking of John C. McGinley. No, this is Ted McGinley, who... He
looks familiar. He's an 80s actor.
Yeah, I think he was in Revenge.
Oh, fuck. He's the bully in Revenge of the Nerds, yeah.
Oh, that's... Okay, yeah, that's right. He's...
What?
Yes. He's the bully in Revenge of the Nerds. He was on Married with Children for a long time. He was like the second husband to like the neighbors or whatever. Yeah, if you look him up, you'll recognize his face. But thank you, you're right. I was getting my McGinleys confused. How dare I? But no, so he's Tom Turbine. Michael McKean, he is sportsman, and then also Sergeant O'Shaughnessy. Of course, like Michael McKean, like very famous comedy actor, Mr. Green and Clue. He pops up in tons of stuff everywhere. Jeffrey Jones, who was the dad in Beetlejuice, is the magician villain, Sir Swami.
No.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Jeffrey Jones, the less said about him, the better.
Yeah, don't look it up.
He's a horrible, horrible person who tragically has like two very like major roles in pop culture because of Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Beetlejuice, but he's fucking awful. But on the much more positive side, Stephen Root, who's another fantastic character actor. Like if you know, he was the nerdy guy with the stapler in Office Space. Like he plays every like quite nerdy guy you've seen in any movie. He's the voice of Catman. Jennifer Hale, who does a whole bunch of voice work, a lot of it in the DCAU, is Black Siren. Same with Corey Burton, who does a lot of voice work. He's Dr. Blizzard. But my personal favorite, though, is Music Master, is voiced by the great Udo Kier. And if you don't know who he is, if you just do like a Google image search, you will see his face and you will recognize him. He is in...
Oh, fuck.
He is in everything. If there is ever like a creepy old German man in something, that is Udo Kier.
Oh.
He has 270 credits on IMDb for acting.
I honestly, I don't even know where to begin to try and like pull reference points. Like, he's in Blade. He's in, I would have to like do a genuine, like very serious scroll through his work. But he's absolutely one of those like, I've seen this guy's face. I've heard this guy's voice at a billion places. He's fantastic. And I love that he's voicing Music Meister, which is just so bizarre. It's fantastic.
In his clarinet car.
Yes. Oh my God.
That's so good.
I drive one. It looks fun. I'd do it.
Yeah. And then Sportsmaster gets away in just a truck.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, no
Or Sportsman. Like he's driving a giant truck. There's nothing in the back. His prize is in the front seat with him, but he's driving a truck.
Well, he needs to. He's a sports guy. He's got to drive a truck,
And like the magician guy, like either he does random like card tricks and makes doves appear, or he shoots lasers out of his wand, or brings to life a satellite. I don't know what his magic is, but that is some Zatanna level shit.
Hey, he's got a very broad power spectrum that, is perfect for evil. So
yes.
He's in the right business, I think, at the end of the day. All right, well, I think that takes care of Legends. So why don't we go ahead and mosey on into our bat plugs for the week. And Sam, as our guest of honor, what is your plug for the week? What have you been watching, reading, or listening to?
Well, my big quarantine thing I've been watching is like I've been watching all like the British panel show things.
Mm-hmm. They're so good.
They're so good.
So
like,
good.
I binged through Taskmaster, and like I don't know where I can find season 10. It's driving me nuts. I had to watch season 9 on CW. It's gross. But like, I've watched all those. I've basically watched everything YouTube has to offer for those shows, and it's killing me. But because Cameron's brought that up before, I wanted to recommend Infinity Train.
Oh my God, it's so good. Holy
it's
shit.
It's so good. Oh my God. So Infinity Train is it's an animated show that's on HBO Max, and I listened to an interview where they're like, yeah, we wanted to make kind of something like Over the Garden Wall, and they did, and it's great because Over the Garden Wall is also amazing. But basically, Infinity Train is this girl gets her parents are going through divorce, and she ends up like she's running away trying to get to camp, and then she ends up stumbling onto this train, which is an infinite train. And it's like every single compartment is its own universe. And it's amazing. And the show's so good. And there's 3 separate seasons. And they're all so different. And it's great. And everyone should watch it so I can talk about it with everybody.
Yeah, I agree. It is absolutely amazing.
Well,
and I don't want to tell you more about it because I want you to discover the show as you're watching it. Because it's one of those shows that like, I mean, there are spoilers, but it's one of those shows where the less you know going into it, the better.
The better, okay. Well,
but it's amazing.
As the only person now on this podcast who has not seen it, I guess the impetus is on me to go and watch it, which I will go to this week. I will start watching it.
I think when I first pitched it to you, Chris, I'll introduce one other character, and it is her trusty sidekick, the king of the corgis.
Now I have to.
Yes.
My love for corgis is one of my greatest loves in this world. So.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it's a super fast binge. I watched all 3 seasons in 3 days, and that was me pacing myself.
Oh, damn.
Because every season is 10 episodes, and each episode is like 10, 15 minutes long. It's like 11 minutes long.
My God, that's
it's
amazing.
Very digestible.
Oh, I love that. Like, because I've been watching DuckTales, and I've been going through it pretty quickly. And I love the show. It's super fun, but it's also like 25 episode seasons. I'm just like, God damn it.
But they're also good.
They are good, but it's a lot.
for Sam, so you've watched Taskmaster. Have you done Pointless yet? Have you gotten into that show?
No, I haven't.
Pointless is a reverse Family Feud trivia show, and they have two versions.
Is that
they have
the
normal
one that
Pointless.
Victoria Core Mitchell hosts?
No, it's Alexander and Richard from season 4 of Taskmaster.
You are going to find this
Richard
really
Osman,
funny.
yes.
I have 2 YouTube tabs open right now, and one of them is an episode. Yeah, I literally just watched an episode of that because Alex Horn was on for one of them. I was like, oh, Alex Horn is on a show. Oh, with Richard Osman. That's great. I literally watched an episode of it this morning for the first time.
It's great, yeah. So there's a celebrity version and then a normal version, and both are great. Obviously, the celebrity version is more fun to watch, but both, like, I feel like I've learned so much. And it being a British show, a British trivia show specifically, they have a lot of like American trivia questions, which are very easy for us.
Yeah.
But it's fun to watch British people struggle on American geography.
Fair.
Very fair.
Good. I will add that to the list of what to distract myself with next.
Yes, it's great. And it goes on forever. There's that, and then QI, I would also recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched all the QI that I can find. I've watched all the Would I Lie to You, all the 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown.
Great, yeah.
Because the one that got me into all this was Nevermind the Buzzcocks. And I've never been a big, like, music knowledge person, but just, like, watching all the different, like, British celebrities bounce off each other was always, like, my favorite thing. And that show's not even on the air anymore.
There's such a, like, unique bond between British comedians / celebrities that I feel like is not the same in America.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And actually,
Yes.
the only thing that is closest to that was the thing I wrote in weeks ago was the nerd show where you correct the question.
Actually.
Actually, yeah. Where actually, because like no one cares who wins. It's just nerdy people hanging out with each other and doing a fun thing. Like,
Yeah.
like that is the closest American comparison that I could that I found.
Also, I just feel like you just described this show of like nerdy people talking about things and hanging out together, and no one wins.
Yes.
That's fair.
Yeah,
Must be why I like this show.
Yeah.
there are no winners in this experience.
One last very short point on British shows and game shows, because I've also been very obsessed with them over the past quarantine, the past 17 years of quarantine. The prizes are so much smaller than American prizes. Like for Pointless, you win like £2,000. And there's something so much nicer about like, oh, how like you're about to win £2,000. Like, what are you going to do with that money? It's like, oh, me and my husband are going to go on a nice trip across somewhere and just like hang out together. And there's such like less stakes compared to American shows. It's like, what are you going to do with the money? You're about to win $50,000. It's like, oh, my dad's in the hospital. My daughter's about to go to college, and I'm trying to decide how I want to split the money between the two. It's like, I don't want to know that. I want to know, like, I'm about to go blow it in one-handed cards in Vegas. Like, that's so much more relatable.
Because
Like-
I won this game show, I don't have to sell meth to save my family.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've been watching American Ninja Warrior, and it's like I really want to win that money so I can cure my cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Oh, what a place and time we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, what about you? What have you been watching, listening, reading?
So I get the impression that maybe Cameron, you were doing the same thing this week, but I was doing a Halloween binge, catching up on a lot of my favorite Halloween movies. And so I was trying to figure out which one amongst all of them I wanted to highlight the most.
Halloween Town?
I did not watch Halloween Town. I actually
You didn't watch Halloween? Chris!
I've never seen it. I actively refuse to because it's a DCOM. And not because DCOMs are shitty, but frankly because DCOMs are shitty.
How dare you?
I will bring Smart House DVDs to your home, and you will watch it and be like, yeah, this is a shitty movie, but it was fun.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Megaplex is genuinely a good movie. It has Mickey Rooney.
Honestly, other than like
God, you're a monster.
other than like movies from the animated shows, so like, you know, like the Kim Possible movie or whatever, I don't think I've ever seen a single DCOM. I think.
I don't know how we've remained friends for this long.
And
I don't know how you as a family found one thing, even just one thing to do every month to look forward to.
Oh, we just did our own separate thing. We never hung out together.
Yeah, mine too, except for this one time a month when we came together and watched a movie about a girl who could talk to horses.
I mean, that...
And then several months later, about the other movie, about the girl who could talk to horses.
Well, Chris, I skipped my mom's wedding when she married my stepfather because it was the same weekend of High School Musical 2.
Oh, I know. You've told that story, and that just says more about you than it does me. So I am fine living in my DCOM ignorance. But okay, I think of all of the ones I'm going to plug, I think I'm going to go for Sleepy Hollow because I had never seen that before.
Okay,
so
the 2002 remake.
No, so the 1999 Tim Burton film.
That one.
Yes.
Yeah, that year.
I'd never seen it, but I generally like Tim Burton stuff. I think maybe of late it's maybe not been quite as on form, but I think when he is on form, I do really enjoy his stuff. And I was very pleasantly impressed by it. I thought that the story's fun and it's kind of like a murder mystery of like, oh, who's killing all these people? Everyone says the Headless Horseman, but like, is he real? Is he not? That's all played out there. I thought Johnny Depp was great of playing like this very cowardly character through the whole thing. I'm not always the biggest Depp fan, but I thought he worked really well. But for me, the biggest thing was just like, it was Tim Burton and his style really on point. Like, I think sometimes he can be almost a little bit cartoony and almost starts to dip into like self-parody to a degree. Whereas this, despite the fantastic nature of the movie, felt like one of his more grounded films. Plus, the great thing about watching any movie of this era is like the sets are almost entirely real. Like I'm watching this going like, oh, like they built this town. They built all these forests that they're doing these like horse chases through and stuff. And a lot of it is still practical effects. And it looks incredible all the way through. And it's like everything about it was just really impressive. And even the little bits of CGI they have in there for 1999 holds up really, really well. So it's obviously weird to now recommend a Halloween film after the end of Halloween. But maybe if you're making a list of the Halloween movies you missed this year to revisit next year, I would absolutely recommend checking out Sleepy Hollow if you haven't already. And if you have, give it a rewatch because it's actually pretty damn solid. So.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I remember queuing. Is it still on Netflix?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I remember queuing it up last Halloween and something was happening that day and I just kept getting distracted and I don't think I watched more than like 5 minutes of it, but it's good to know that you give it a positive review. So
I do.
I'll definitely go back for it.
A very strong positive review. So but what about you, Cameron? How many DCOMs did you watch this week?
So Chris, in typical fashion, when one of us pitches something fun, the other must pitch something serious.
Oh no.
And so I want to plug because it is a pretty like it's a hard movie to watch right now in our society, but it is a fantastic movie. I watched The Trial of the Chicago 7.
How is it?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It is like acting wise. Do you have something against it, Sam, or just
I do, but keep going. Finish your plug.
Okay. Well, I know it's not entirely accurate. But it's Andy Sorkin.
Aaron
Sorkin.
Yes, the great
Andy
coked out
Samberg.
writer, the great allegedly coked out writer Aaron Sorkin, who legitimately is a great writer. So,
yeah, and I know it's not entirely historically accurate, but like just seeing this and also like talking to my mom about it beforehand, like this was her early days of protesting. She was 14 or 15 when this was actually happening back in 1973. Sorry to age you, Mom. And we talked about it afterwards about like watching it versus living it. And it is very hard to watch in the current climate because it does show like how little we've actually progressed as a society. But it is watch it after the election maybe. It's I don't know, I enjoyed it. What is your issue with it, Sam?
one of the podcasts I listen to is called The Dollop, and oftentimes it's taking like real figures from American history and it just have like ridiculous stories and just like telling that story behind it. But he'll also sometimes do deep dives into real political figures, but it's two comedians telling the story back and forth, so it ends up being fun.
Yeah.
And the past 3 episodes have been a 3-part deep dive into Abby Hoffman. And the reason why he did that is because the Aaron Sorkin story is not really true to the Abby Hoffman legacy. It is wildly inaccurate, and he points out a lot of the things that he's like, well, Aaron Sorkin kind of did this, but that's not true because what actually happened was this.
Abby Hoffman was the Sacha Baron Cohen, right? Or is he the other one?
I'm not sure. He was whoever the lead was. Like,
Okay,
whoever
yeah,
the main
that's
one
Sacha.
was.
Yeah, so the two leads are, you have Sacha Baron Cohen is kind of the leader of like the hippie side, and then Eddie Redmayne is kind of the leader of the like
Then Sacha
college
Baron Cohen.
protesters.
Yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen
Yeah.
plays Abby Hoffman.
Okay.
And it basically, he also has a podcast basically talking about how dangerous like a lot of Aaron Sorkin things are because it kind of like smooths out the edges of a lot of activism. And like he has a whole other podcast talking about the West Wing, which I haven't started listening to yet. But basically, like, I would say if you enjoyed the movie The Magnificent Seven, or the Chicago 7, excuse me, I would recommend they're different, whatever. I would recommend listening to now the 3-part episode on The Dollop about Abby Hoffman that kind of is a little bit more kind of true to who that person was and kind of true to that person's legacy of very real, very tangible activism. Because it talks about how Aaron Sorkin will release a movie like this, but then not actually do anything.
Yeah, that I can see that. Yeah, because that character's introduction specifically is the first scene in the movie is him teaching a class of like what looks like high school, college age kids how to make a Molotov cocktail.
Oh,
yeah, and that's
great.
not. And and that's not what happened at all,
Yeah.
and is not anything that he did, and in fact contributes to the narrative of peaceful protests are actually riots by people on the left and not here getting beaten up by people on the right. So
Yeah,
Just
I mean
listen to, like,
the
3
movie
weeks of
is
this.
the movie is very left focused, and it is a
Yeah.
lot of, I mean you follow the activists the entire time,
Right.
And so you
the
get their
podcast
specific.
talks about like the distinction between liberals and leftists and how liberals
Yes,
often
okay.
co-opt leftist ideology because I don't know. I'm not the political expert here, but like I would say that if you
God,
enjoyed the
neither am
movie, I would recommend the podcast.
Okay, yeah, I
All
definitely
3
will.
episodes.
No, that's good to
On
know.
the Dollop, is that what you said it's called?
The Dollop.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the plugs in the show notes too, because that's good to know. Because like I did want to watch that at some point, because I do like Aaron Sorkin's writing, recognizing that like he definitely loves to just fantasize and romanticize about things in a way that could be like satisfying to watch, but yeah, it's not true to life necessarily. So that's good to know. Like there's
Wouldn't it-
a context
yeah.
to apply as well. So
Yeah.
I'll throw that in there. So. All right. Well, then we'll just kind of wrap things up here with some notes from friends. And we have, for our first time ever, a live notes from friends section, because Sam, you wrote into us this week to point something out. And so rather than having me read it out loud, which would seem very silly and redundant given that you're here, I'm just going to let you do it yourself on the air. So
I was driving back from Phoenix yesterday, and I was listening to last week's episode, and you spent this entire time fantasizing about, well, what would happen? What would a world be like if she'd actually done this and killed all the men? And at no point in the entire episode do you actually reference the comic book, Why the Last Man? Which is a
Yeah.
comic book.
Chris, have you read
if
that?
all the men, if all the male mammals in the entire world were killed.
Have you read that, Chris?
I haven't, which is why I'm going to put it on you, because I know you have.
I
So
I
it's,
have read it. I've read
so
3
Sam,
of the 4 issues.
My defense is I knew of it, but I never read it. Cameron
I recommend it.
Cameron
It's
had
pretty
read
great.
it and didn't mention it, so I think that's ultimately his short-sightedness, not mine.
It is great. It is a great comic series. I'm ashamed of myself for not even remembering that book.
God,
while talking about this.
There's literally a moment in last week's episode where you two are sitting and listing like, I sure am sad that like these like listing dudes you wish you hadn't died. And in like the first issue, there's a moment where Yorick and some woman are sitting there listing the dudes that they wish hadn't died.
Was Paul Rudd on their list?
They were listing specifically like bands, but like.
Okay.
Also, Paul Rudd was in the news this week for handing out cookies for people in polling lines in New York. And
Yeah,
it just shows
I saw that.
how great he is.
What a great guy.
The sweetest, most Paul Rudd thing
I
possible.
hope he doesn't die.
Yeah, me too. I know. He's the only man I would miss.
But anyway, I literally sent the message like, this is weird that I'm going to be on the show tomorrow, and also you need to know this.
I mean, honestly,
yes, that's our bad.
that's ultimately what the notes from friends section is to have other people hold us accountable because we are idiots.
I don't think you're idiots.
Most of the time.
Right,
Most of the
fair.
time. Yeah, so thank you, Sam, for being our first ever live Notes from Friends. And then along those lines, I just want to do some shout outs because we have a handful of people that tend to respond on Twitter and Instagram throughout the week, usually just messaging thoughts about the episodes and stuff like that, and don't always get the acknowledgement. So I just want to say a thank you to Ashley Clark, who is always sending us in messages, but then also Justin Eddins at SuperKid801 on Twitter, who basically every week always responds with some thoughts on the episodes and is super sweet and fun to chat with. Shout out to Pizza and Parsecs, they have a whole podcast network. Referenced them before because they're very kind, and every week they include us in their Follow Friday. And this last week we were like one of the highlighted podcasts, which was also incredibly sweet on their part. And then also one other person, G is Morning Malice, aka at Delicate F Alice on Twitter, who also sends in a lot of lovely messages. So nothing specific from all of them, but just a general thank you for all you guys for messaging in so often.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, and being definitely a bright spot in my week as I'm posting this stuff. So. Thank you. But if you want to reach out to us, as Sam has done, to point out a blatant lapse in our pop culture knowledge, you can find us at Timm Talk Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Gmail. You can find me at Lordifer on Twitter and Instagram. If you go to Instagram, that's where you could find the tribute I wrote to the late Sir Sean Connery. So
Yes, it was very well written.
thank you.
If you want to see my art, you can find that at Cameron.Dexter. And if you want to see my face, you can find that at CamDexter_adventures. Neither have been updated since March.
Oh my God, get on that, man. When this comes out, we will officially have left October. You didn't post anything for Inktober. So
I didn't.
And I know your reasons why, but I will still take every opportunity I can to shame you publicly. So
Yes, that's fair.
Yes.
Sam, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter at Sam Gasch, SamGasch, or you can follow my podcast, Ideal Remake, on Twitter, but mostly on Instagram at Ideal Remake, or you can join me on Facebook. But yeah, Ideal Remake. You should listen because it's fun and is interesting, especially if you are a writer and want to talk about pitching stories and kind of crafting ideas around that. That's kind of what it's for.
No, it is super fun. Every time I've come on as a guest, it has been an absolute blast. And Cameron, you and I have a tendency to try to invent on the spot ways in which a lot of these podcast episodes could be better. I'm gonna be honest, way more fun doing it with Sam.
Fine.
It's not.
Does he not steamroll you like I do?
It's not more fun because you're not there. It's more fun because it's like an actual structured conversation around making these episodes better, rather than us just spinning our wheels and making me have to edit for longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you like it because I have to edit it.
Honestly, it's my favorite thing now to be on a podcast and not have to be responsible for the edit.
It was pretty great. I'm genuinely looking forward to only having to edit my own podcast this
I
afternoon.
know, right? It makes things so much easier. But no, a perpetual bat plug for Ideal Remake. It's a great show, Sam, and it's always fun to be a part of it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, and thank you for joining us for this. So glad we could have you for the third time, right? Yes.
Yeah, I believe the third.
Okay.
Woo, Sam. Oh, the audience is back. That's so weird. Sam, we love you. Oh my gosh.
Oh, they're back. They're back. The studio audience is back.
They got through that voting line real quick.
Yeah, man. It's pretty quick out here in California.
Everyone voted early. That's why. Yeah, as they should. But no, Sam, it was an absolute pleasure to have you on here to talk about Legends. And, Cameron and I will be back next week for the next 2-part episodes of Justice League, which will be a Night of Shadows, parts 1 and 2. We're going to get some Morgan Le Fay. I'm sure Cameron is already going crazy with excitement. Yes, we're getting some Etrigan.
Yeah.
So, get your limericks ready. We got some Etrigan next week. So, but until then, thank you again, Sam, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Oh, and a Michael Bay movie that's good is Pain and Gain. I remember that. All right, bye.